My son called the police. On me. The first thing I saw wasn't my son's face. It was the flashing red and blue lights reflecting across my living room walls. For a split second, I thought there had been an accident. Then I heard Michael's voice outside. "She's still inside?" My heart stopped. I pulled the curtain aside just enough to see 3 police officers standing on my front porch. My own son was pointing toward the front door, toward me. One of the officers knocked, not softly, not politely. 3 firm knocks that echoed through the house my husband and I had built 41 years ago. "Mrs. Wilson, would you please open the door?" I couldn't move. Michael had called the police. On me. I kept waiting for him to tell them there had been some terrible misunderstanding. Instead, he lowered his head and quietly said, "She's refusing to give it back." Give what back? I looked around the room in confusion. The only thing in my hands was a small wooden box I'd found 2 days earlier while cleaning the attic. The same box Michael had begged me not to open. The same box my late husband had hidden for decades. I wrapped my fingers around it even tighter. Another knock. "Mrs. Wilson, we're not here to arrest you." The officer's voice was calm. "We just need to talk." I wanted to believe him. But when your own son calls the police, you stop believing simple words. You start wondering what else has been happening behind your back. Because children don't call the police on their mothers for no reason. Or at least, that's what I thought 48 hours earlier. I was standing in my attic surrounded by cardboard boxes. Selling the house had been my idea, not Michael's. After Harold passed away 18 months earlier, every room had become painfully quiet. The silence wasn't peaceful anymore. It was heavy. Every chair reminded me he wasn't sitting there. Every coffee cup reminded me I was making only one. Michael had gently suggested I move closer to him and Jennifer. Not into their home, just closer. "There are beautiful condos 20 minutes from us," he'd said. "You'd still have your independence." It sounded reasonable. So I finally decided it was time. I started with the attic. Harold always joked that the attic held our entire marriage. Christmas decorations, old suitcases, boxes filled with photographs, things neither of us had touched in years. Dust covered almost everything, except one small wooden box tucked behind an old military trunk. It looked different, almost protected, as if someone had hidden it on purpose. I brushed the dust away. On the lid, written in Harold's unmistakable handwriting, were 4 words, "For Michael." Beneath that, another sentence, "If you're reading this, I'm already gone." My hands began to shake. There was no mention of me, no explanation, just my son's name. I turned the box over. It was locked. Not with an ordinary latch, with a tiny brass lock I had never seen before. Harold and I never kept secrets from each other, or at least I believed we didn't. I stared at the box for several minutes. Then I did what any curious widow probably would have done. I called my son. Michael answered on the second ring. "Hey, Mom. I found something in the attic." "What is it?" "A wooden box." Silence. Long enough for me to pull the phone away and check if the call had dropped. "It has your name on it." Even longer silence. Then his voice changed completely. "Mom, don't touch it," I frowned. "What do you mean?" "I mean exactly what I said. Please, don't open it." It wasn't just concern. It sounded like fear. Real fear. And that frightened me more than the box itself. I laughed nervously. It's just an old box, Michael. No, it's not. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Before I could ask another question, he hung up. I stood alone in the attic, staring at the little wooden box. For the first time since Harold died, I felt like there was a part of my husband's life I had never known, and whatever was inside that box, my son was terrified that I might see it. Michael arrived in 90 minutes. I know because I stared at the kitchen clock the entire time. Every passing second made that wooden box feel heavier in my hands. When his truck finally pulled into the driveway, he didn't wave. He didn't smile. He didn't even look at the flowers I'd planted only a week before. He got out of the truck and walked straight to the front door. I had never seen him move that fast. The moment I opened it, he looked past me, not at me, at the box. His shoulders dropped as if he'd just confirmed his worst fear. "You found it." I forced a smile. "I told you I did." He stepped inside without another word. For nearly a full minute, neither of us spoke. He simply stared at the small wooden box sitting on my dining room table. Finally, he whispered, "I hoped Dad had thrown it away." That sentence hit me harder than anything else. Harold never threw away anything. He kept birthday cards, old grocery lists, even the hospital bracelet from the day Michael was born. Why would he throw away a box addressed to his own son? Michael slowly reached toward it. "I'm taking it." I folded my arms. "No." He looked at me. "Mom?" I said no. "It's mine." "No," I replied. "It was hidden in my house. My husband left it there. If there's something inside that concerns this family, I have every right to know." His jaw tightened. "You don't understand." "Then explain it." "I can't." "Why not?" He closed his eyes. For a moment, he looked less like a 45-year-old man and more like the little boy who used to hide behind Harold whenever he got scared. "Because Dad made me promise." I laughed bitterly. "So he trusted you, but not me?" His silence answered the question. That hurt more than I wanted to admit. Jennifer arrived a few minutes later. She must have driven separately. The second she walked into the house, she knew something was wrong. Her eyes moved from Michael to me, to the box. "Oh," she whispered, "so you found it." I looked at her. "You knew too?" She hesitated. Michael answered first. "Jennifer." "No." He didn't even let her finish. She immediately looked down. That tiny moment changed everything. Now I wasn't looking at one person keeping a secret. I was looking at two. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was the only outsider in my own family. Michael picked up the box. "I'll keep it safe." I grabbed his wrist. "You are not leaving this house with it." His voice remained calm. "Mom, I'm asking you one last time. Please, trust me." I pulled the box back. "No." He didn't fight me. He simply let go. That surprised me. Then he said something that made my stomach tighten. "If you force this, everything changes." What does that even mean? He looked toward Jennifer. She was crying now. Real tears, not dramatic ones. The kind you try desperately to hide. She quietly said, "Michael." Maybe she deserves to know. He turned so quickly I almost didn't recognize him. "No," his voice cracked. "Not like this." Jennifer didn't argue. She simply walked outside. A few seconds later, I watched her sitting alone on the porch with her face buried in her hands. What on earth was happening? Michael left an hour later, without the box, without another argument, Just before he reached the front door, he turned back toward me. "If you love Dad, don't open it." Then he walked away. Those words echoed through the empty house long after his truck disappeared. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Harold writing those words. For Michael, not for Margaret, not for my wife, for Michael. 43 years of marriage, and somehow there had been something important enough to hide from me. Around 2 a.m, I gave up trying to sleep. I walked downstairs. The house was silent. Moonlight spilled through the living room windows. The wooden box was exactly where I'd left it. I ran my fingers across the tiny brass lock again. Then I noticed something I hadn't seen before. There were fresh scratches around the keyhole. Someone had already tried to open it. Very recently. My heart began pounding. Had Michael tried? Or had Harold? As I turned the box over in my hands, I heard something outside. A car door. Soft footsteps. Then someone tried my back door, very gently, as if they already knew the house, and as if they weren't expecting anyone to be awake. I froze. The doorknob moved again, slowly, carefully, not like someone trying to break in, like someone who believed they still had a key. I held my breath. The wooden box was clutched so tightly against my chest that my fingers began to ache. Another soft click. Then nothing. Silence. I forced myself toward the kitchen window and carefully pulled the curtain aside. A dark SUV was parked across the street. Its headlights were off. Someone stood near my back porch, too far away to recognize. A second later, the figure turned, walked back to the SUV, and disappeared into the night. I never slept again. At 8 the next morning, I drove straight to Michael's office. He looked surprised to see me. "Mom, who was outside my house last night?" His face changed instantly. "What?" "Someone tried to get inside." He stared at me for several seconds, then quietly asked, "Did they get in?" "No." Relief washed over his face. Not confusion, not surprise. Relief. That bothered me. "You knew someone might come," he rubbed his forehead. "I told you not to touch the box. I asked you a question." Instead of answering, he locked his office door, then lowered his voice. "Mom, where is it?" "The box?" "Yes." "At home." "Good," he exhaled. "Leave it there." I felt anger building inside me. "No, I'm opening it." His expression hardened. "You cannot. Stop telling me what I can and can't do." The people outside his office must have heard us. We had never shouted at each other before, not once in 45 years. Michael stepped closer. His voice was almost a whisper. "If you open that box, you won't just change your life. You'll destroy Dad's last wish." I stared at him. What was he hiding from me? He looked away. "I can't tell you." "Then I will find out myself." I turned and walked out. He didn't follow me. That afternoon I stopped at the local hardware store. I bought a small lock-picking kit, something I never imagined I'd purchase at 72 years old. The young cashier smiled. "Old lock," I forced a smile back. "You could say that." Back home, I carried the wooden box into Harold's old workshop. If he were watching me, he probably wouldn't approve. I sat at his workbench, the same bench where he'd spent countless Saturdays fixing broken radios and building birdhouses for the grandchildren we never had. The brass lock looked old, worn. I inserted the first tiny tool. Nothing. The second, still nothing. On the third attempt, I heard a faint click. My pulse quickened. The lock had opened. I stared at the lid for almost a full minute. This was it. 43 years of marriage. Whatever Harold had hidden was only seconds away. I slowly lifted the lid. Inside, there were dozens of neatly tied letters, old photographs, a faded cassette tape, a tiny silver baby bracelet, and one sealed envelope, unlike the others. This one was different. Across the front, in Harold's handwriting, were the words, "For Michael only." Underneath, another sentence. "If Margaret is reading this, stop her before she reaches the last page." My hands began to shake so violently that I nearly dropped the envelope. Stop her? Why? What could possibly be written on the last page? I reached for it anyway, before I could break the seal. My phone rang. Michael. I ignored it. It rang again, ignored a third time. Then Jennifer called. I answered. She was crying. "Margaret, please, don't read the letter. Jennifer, tell me what's happening." "I can't." "Then tell Michael to stop treating me like a child." There was a long silence. Then she whispered something that made my blood run cold. "He doesn't want to protect himself. He's trying to protect you." Before I could ask what she meant, the call ended. I looked back at the envelope. Then, for the first time, I noticed something tucked beneath it, a photograph. It showed Harold standing outside a hospital, holding a newborn baby, but the woman beside him wasn't me. I couldn't breathe. I looked at the photograph again, then again. Harold was younger, maybe 30. His hair was darker. His smile was unmistakable. He was holding a newborn baby with the kind of tenderness I'd seen thousands of times. But the woman standing beside him wasn't me. I had never seen her before, not once, not in 43 years of marriage. I turned the photograph over. There was only one date, April 14th, 1979. My stomach dropped. That wasn't possible. Michael had been born in April of 1979. The room suddenly felt too small. I grabbed the edge of Harold's workbench to steady myself. One question kept pounding through my mind. Who was she? I reached for the bundle of letters. Most of them were addressed to Michael. Some had never been opened. Others were sealed with old yellowing tape. I picked the oldest one. Before I could unfold it, someone knocked at my front door. Not politely, urgently. I already knew who it was. Michael. He was calling my name before I even reached the hallway. "Mom, please. I know you're inside." I stood perfectly still. Another knock, louder, then Jennifer's voice. "Margaret, we just want to talk." I almost opened the door. Almost. Then I looked back at the photograph. No, not this time. I needed answers before I listened to anyone else's explanations. After several minutes, their car finally drove away. The moment the driveway was empty, I locked every door in the house for the first time in decades. Then I carried everything from the box into the dining room. Photographs, letters, the cassette tape, hospital papers, one by one. I spread them across the table. That's when I noticed something strange. The hospital bracelet. It didn't say Michael. It simply read, "Baby boy Wilson." No first name, just the family name. I frowned. Hospitals usually print the baby's full name. Why hadn't they? Then I found another envelope, smaller, addressed to Harold, not Michael, not me. Inside was only one sentence. "Thank you for keeping your promise." No signature, nothing else. A promise. What promise? The more I searched, the less sense anything made. None of it looked like evidence of an affair. There were no love letters, no romantic photographs, no hidden bank accounts, nothing. Just fragments, pieces of a story, almost as if someone had deliberately removed the most important pages. I suddenly remembered the scratches around the lock. Someone else had been inside this box. Someone had taken something. That thought sent me racing upstairs. If someone had searched the attic, what else had they looked through? I opened every closet, every drawer. Nothing seemed disturbed until I entered Harold's old office. One drawer was slightly open. I was certain I'd closed it months earlier. Inside, his personal filing cabinet had been emptied. Every folder was gone. Only one thing remained, a sticky note in Harold's handwriting. Richard, just one name. Richard, no last name, no explanation. I immediately knew who it was. Richard Collins, our family attorney, the same man who had handled Harold's will, the same man Michael insisted I never needed to meet because everything had already been taken care of. Why would Harold leave only his name behind? Before I could think any further, my phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't Michael. It was Richard Collins himself. I stared at the screen. He almost never called me directly. I answered. His voice sounded unusually calm. "Margaret, I heard you found Harold's box." The blood drained from my face. I'd never told him about it, not once. I whispered, "How do you know about the box?" There was a pause, too long. Then he quietly replied, "Because Harold asked me to make sure." "You never opened it." Click. He hung up. I stood frozen in the middle of Harold's office. How could Richard know what was inside, if the box had supposedly remained locked for decades? Only one answer made sense. Someone had opened it before me, and whoever it was had removed exactly what they didn't want me to find. As I looked back toward the dining room table, I realized something else. One photograph was missing. The photograph of Harold holding the newborn baby. It had been lying there less than 5 minutes earlier. Now, it was gone. I searched the entire house twice. The photograph had vanished. I knew I hadn't imagined it. Only minutes earlier, I'd been staring at Harold holding a newborn beside a woman I'd never seen before. Now it was gone. No open windows, no broken locks, no signs that anyone had entered. Yet one piece of evidence had disappeared. Only one. Whoever had taken it knew exactly what mattered. And that frightened me more than the photograph itself. I grabbed my purse, the wooden box, and every letter that was still inside it. If someone had entered my house once, they might come back. There was only one place I could think of, the police station. Officer James Carter happened to be at the front desk when I walked in. He recognized me immediately. "Mrs. Wilson, is everything all right?" I placed the wooden box on the counter. "No. I think someone has been inside my house." He asked me to explain everything from the beginning. I told him about the attic, the locked box, the letters, the missing photograph, Richard Collins' strange phone call, Michael begging me not to open the box. Officer Carter listened without interrupting. When I finished, he asked only one question. "Do you trust your son?" I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. 24 hours earlier, I would have answered without hesitation. Now, I wasn't sure. Officer Carter examined the box carefully. Then he frowned. "Mrs. Wilson, this lock wasn't opened for the first time yesterday." I stared at him. "What do you mean?" He pointed to tiny marks inside the keyhole. These scratches are old. Years old. Someone opened this box long before you did. The room suddenly felt cold. So Michael was telling the truth. He had known what was inside, or at least, he had seen it before. Just then the station phone rang. Officer Carter answered. His expression changed almost immediately. He looked at me. "Mrs. Wilson, I think you should hear this." He pressed the speaker button. It was Michael. His voice sounded exhausted. "Officer, my mother's there, isn't she?" "Yes." A long pause. Then Michael quietly said, "I'm not trying to press charges." "I never was." I frowned. "Press charges? Against me?" Officer Carter glanced in my direction. "Then why did you call us yesterday?" Michael's answer came without hesitation. "Because someone is following her." Every sound in the station disappeared. "What?" "I've seen the same black SUV outside her house 3 times this week. I hired a private investigator after Dad died. He told me someone had been asking questions about a wooden box. I thought we still had time. But now, they know she found it. I felt my knees weaken all this time. I believed Michael had been hiding something from me. What if he'd been hiding something from someone else? Officer Carter immediately requested the investigator's report. 10 minutes later, it arrived by email. There were photographs. The same black SUV. The same man standing outside my house. Outside Michael's office. Even outside Richard Collins' law firm. The same face. Over and over again. One man watching all of us. Officer Carter looked at the last page. His eyes narrowed. "Mrs. Wilson, this man used to work for Richard Collins." Before I could process that, my phone vibrated. A text message, unknown number, only one sentence. "You should have left the box closed." Attached to the message was a photograph. It had been taken less than a minute earlier, of me, standing inside the police station. Someone wasn't just watching my house anymore. They were watching me. Officer Carter looked at me with a seriousness I'd never seen before. "Mrs. Wilson, I don't think you should go home tonight." I nodded. For the first time in days, I was actually afraid. Not of my son, not of the truth, but of whoever had spent years trying to keep that truth buried. Less than an hour later, detectives arrived with a search warrant for Richard Collins' law office. Michael sat beside me in the station without saying a word. We hadn't spoken honestly in days, maybe longer. Finally, I looked at him. "You never wanted the house." He slowly shook his head. "No, I never cared about the house. I cared about what Dad left inside that box." I swallowed. "Then tell me." "No more secrets." He closed his eyes for a moment, then quietly began. "A few weeks before Dad died, he asked me to meet him alone. He gave me the key to that box. He made me promise I wouldn't let anyone read the last letter. I asked him why. He said, 'Because your mother will blame herself.' I stared at him. He never told me what was inside. He only made me promise. I opened the box after he died. I read everything, but I couldn't let you read that last page." His voice broke. "Not because I wanted to lie to you. Because Dad believed that protecting you was the last thing he could still do." Just then Officer Carter returned. Richard Collins had confessed. Not to murder, not to stealing the house, but to something far more personal. Years earlier, Harold had trusted him with the box. After Harold's death, Richard secretly opened it. He removed one photograph and several pages from the final letter. not because they had value, because they contained the names of people involved in an old medical error that could have destroyed several respected families if it ever became public. Richard had spent years making sure those pages never resurfaced. When Margaret found the box, he panicked. The black SUV belonged to a retired investigator Richard had hired to recover the missing documents before anyone could read them. Everything suddenly made sense. The phone calls, the missing photograph, the strange behavior, the fear. Officer Carter handed me a sealed evidence envelope. We recovered this. Inside were the missing pages and the missing photograph. My hands trembled. Michael reached toward me. "You don't have to read it." I looked at him. "No. I've spent enough of my life being protected from the truth." Slowly, I unfolded Harold's final letter. "My dearest Margaret, if you're reading this, then Michael couldn't stop you. Please don't be angry with him. Everything he did because I asked him to. 45 years ago, the hospital made a mistake that nearly destroyed another family. For a few terrifying hours, they believed Michael had been switched at birth. He wasn't. The mistake was corrected before we ever left the hospital. But another couple wasn't as fortunate. They spent years fighting in court. Richard convinced me to stay silent because our testimony could have reopened the entire case. I've regretted that decision for the rest of my life. The woman in the photograph wasn't my lover. She was the mother of the other little boy. I visited her once to apologize. She forgave me. I never forgave myself. If you know this now, I'm sorry. Please don't let this become the reason you lose your son. He's the best thing that ever happened to us. Love him the way we always promised we would. Forever yours, Harold." I read the last line 3 times. Then I looked at Michael. He had been carrying that burden alone ever since Harold died. Not because he wanted power, not because he wanted my house, but because he loved his father enough to keep a promise, even when it meant losing his mother's trust. I stood up, walked across the room, and wrapped my arms around my son. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, I whispered, "I'm so sorry." He shook his head. "No, Mom. We both lost Dad. We were just grieving in different ways." A few months later, I decided not to sell the house. Not yet. Every Sunday, Michael and Jennifer came for dinner. Sometimes we'd laugh. Sometimes we'd cry, but we never kept secrets anymore. As for the wooden box, I locked it one last time, not to hide the truth, but to preserve it, because every family has a story. Some are filled with joy, some with regret, and some remind us that love isn't measured by the secrets we keep, but by the forgiveness we choose when those secrets finally come to light. That day my son called the police on me. I thought I had lost my family. Looking back, it was the day we finally found each other again.